Hi guys! So today I'm going to go ahead and show you the rest of the process for painting your foam armor and your Worbla armor. So first things first, I'm going to run and try to find my sandpaper. There we go. So I actually have three types of sandpaper. I know I showed two. There's only two that I will actually use for this. So the first type is a 150 grit sandpaper. This is just more of a rough sandpaper in case you have extra edges you need to get out. The second kind that I will be using for sure is this 320 grit wet and dry. This has so far been my favorite to use with this gesso and Worbla. The third sandpaper that I have is just a standard 180 grit. It's fantastic for just getting those big chunks down, not like what you'd use 150 grit for. So go ahead and grab your piece and we'll get started. Alright, so here I am starting to sand the foam armor piece that's been gessoed. You'll notice that I am letting it kind of flop around a bit. That's okay. I did choose to start this one just with that 320 because it was smoother than I had anticipated. I thought that I slopped it on there pretty bad, but apparently I didn't. So you'll notice that I'm not going in any particular motion. I'm just going with it and seeing how smooth the finish is as I go. It's just like, when you're sanding wood, pretty much anything. You'll notice that around the little googly eye studs, I guess I'll call them, that I put in, I am making sure that I try to get around that really good before I spray paint, because the spray paint will pick up those shapes. So you'll notice that I'm starting to sand down the sides and the edges. This is just so that I have kind of more of a smooth finish there as well. I was also curious to sand it down to see if I had actively gotten enough gesso on it before I started spray painting, because the foam will totally eat up all of the spray paint. It'll make it a lot harder for it to dry. Here, I just decided that I should probably try these gauntlets on to make sure that they'll fit with the dress. Looks like it's going to work out okay, and they formed exactly how I wanted to, and you can't see them in this video, but they're pretty smooth. Really like it. So the next step is to take our toys, and we're going to go outside. Alright guys, so now that we're outside, I'll kind of go over the things that you'll need. First thing is you're going to want your canvas or a tarp to lay down so you don't destroy anything around you. Of course, your items and your spray paint. Make sure that your spray paint can adhere to almost any surface, plastics, metals, things like that. I find that this will adhere better to the material at hand. The next thing that I'll go ahead and show you is a little bit of a spray paint technique that Snow of Crystal and Snow Cosplay has actually shown me how to do. It's just to get a nice smooth finish. I know spray paint can intimidate a lot of people, or you can worry about it running. So first thing you want to do is make sure that you have ample distance between you and your item, and just go in spurts. You want to remember that you're not trying to get this all in one coat. You will be doing this in multiple coats. So as you can see, I'm just kind of drawing a line all the way across and down. And then what I'll do is I'll end up going to the other side, coming back up the other way, and letting it dry. You'll also notice that with these two leg pieces that are going to be covering the skirt, that I will also be hitting the sides, the really thin sides of them. This one, I just kind of was like, whatever, we'll just go through it. So next I'm moving on to actually covering the Worbla with the gesso on it. And I'm using the same technique. However, you'll notice that as I go along, I do skip doing the bottom part a little bit, but I do try to get inside it, if that makes sense. It just makes it easier in the long run, so if anything shows up, you'll at least have that little silver banding there. So, as you can see here, this is actually finished from that initial first painting step of the detailing. I had originally recorded this, or I thought I did, and it looks like my laptop kind of decided it didn't want to record. But what I was lucky enough to not lose, and what I still kept, was my process for being able to stencil the design onto the front of the armor. So if any of you are Fate Stay Night fans, Fate Zero fans, Fate series fans in general, you know that Saber's breastplate typically has some pretty intricate and unique designs on it. So rather than trying to freehand this, I opted to do a stencil. So what you'll need to do a stencil is just a standard piece of cardstock, like what you can get at the store. Artists might know it as 100-pound, 110-pound paper. That'll work just fine. You're also going to need a box cutter or X-Acto knife, or if you feel really lucky with scissors, go ahead and use some scissors. And then if you have a self-healing mat, cut it on a self-healing mat, otherwise cut it on a thicker piece of cardboard because you don't want to destroy the table or whatever surface you're working on. So enjoy me making some silly faces as I try to sketch out this design 2 or 3 times before cutting it. So I want you to keep in mind, as I make funny faces at the screen, it's because I'm constantly looking back and referencing my computer screen for the image of Saber's breastplate. I just wanted to make sure that I cut the stencil out correctly the first time, so I wouldn't have to go back and spray paint over everything another time just to start over again. And ta-da! Like that, you have a stencil! Mine did break because I'm really bad at cutting, but that doesn't matter because we're just going to tape it straight on and dab over it like how you would do stenciling if you're familiar with doing stenciling on walls, stenciling on mailboxes, things like that. If you don't know how to do it, all you really need is a paintbrush, some paint, and you just kind of dab it and stipple it on there. Some people prefer using like a sponge paintbrush or a sponge in general to do it, and that's perfectly okay. And I want to emphasize to people that it's completely okay to make mistakes. They wipe off really easily. That's why when you're painting and working with this, you always have a piece of paper, like a tissue paper, or napkin, or toilet paper, or a wet rag, just so you can wipe it off as you go, to save you the process later on of having to paint over it with the silver again and try to repaint that. And ta-da! You have finished your stencils and you have completed it. So I know I didn't go over how I did the stenciling process for the one above, but it's the same as how I did it below. Now, the bottom stencils that should be on there, I actually completed the following afternoon. So that being said, our next video is going to be going over weathering, and I will show you that process as soon as I can. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great night. Bye!